Hello, everyone. Before we get to the second part of our interview with Toby Chapman from OC&C Strategy, a quick word about our sponsor, PropTex. Really simply put, PropTex is a company absolutely at the forefront of making real estate listings much more interesting on any given website. If you want to find out how they can make the listings on your website more interesting, head to PropTex, that's for 2x's.com, or hit the guys up on LinkedIn and, obviously say that we sent you. And now back to the interview. Hello, welcome along to the second part of our interview with Toby Chapman from OC&C Strategy. Now, if you listen to the first part, you'll know what we were talking about. We were talking about things like the REA Group Rightmove deal that Toby worked on that he wasn't allowed to tell us that much about, talking about a lot of things that have happened and are happening. But in this part, we're going to get into the weeds a little bit about things that could happen in the future. Isn't that right, Simon?
Yeah, honestly, I really enjoyed the first part where we sort of did a bit of a deep dive into, how the industry is structured, how the players are currently, trying to capture more value from ancillary products and services. Sort of the what is today, and the way people are doing it. But what was super fascinating in the second half is really putting on that hat of the future and going, well, what could be the role of AI? And really how the industry can be totally turned on its head. Compelling listening. I hope you enjoy the second half.
Okay, I want to switch gears because it'd be remiss of us at this point to have any podcast without talking about AI, which we've managed to do for 36 minutes so far, which is a record. How is OC&C Strategy thinking about AI as it relates to real estate portals? Specifically, I'm thinking about things like agentic search. So I was writing an article about agentic search yesterday and reading another article today from somebody who thinks it's the next real estate portal killer. Personally, looking at the adoption rate of AI search as it pertains to just general internet search, it's not at the point where I think people need to start freaking out about it. But I think maybe 10 years, 15 years in the future, people will trust these things to search for houses. How's OC&C thinking about it?
I think you're right. It's clearly an industry that, on face value, could be susceptible to some of these threats in terms of the sort of more transformative existential potential that Gen AI has, and it's certainly something which we're seeing rise up the agenda in terms of its importance when we do acquisition work and also when we're working on corporate strategy. I'd say that most of the portals around the world, and Simon, you'll have a view on this as well, I'd say they are thinking about it and they're actively thinking about it, but it's still not necessarily always a sort of board level topic of debate. It's still primarily a sort of technology, operations, cost efficiency. So most of the use cases we're seeing actually deployed and actively developed are still around cost saving. They're still around chatbots, streamlining communication with customers, with consumers, customer service. Some work in terms of optimizing search. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors, obviously, as well, in terms of everyone claiming that they're deploying perhaps a bit more AI than they are in reality. But yeah, if you take a step back and you think about some of the more transformative capabilities, I think the implications are probably a little bit different across the different classified verticals. So with something as unstructured as the jobs classified space, and to some extent the property portal space, where often the filters don't do necessarily a good enough job based on what people are actually interested in when they're searching for a job or a property. You can imagine a world in which AI could really be quite transformative if you're able, instead of just sort of filtering based on price and location and number of bedrooms, to search for a place which had the following architectural features, which was a certain distance from a well-rated school, which was within 5-minute walk of all the local underground stations, which had planning permission pre-approved to develop the loft space, etc., etc. You can imagine a world where that just becomes really quite a compelling search experience, and does transform. And if portals can harness that, then they could experience a sort of quantum leap, and they could really disrupt competitive dynamics. And equally, someone else could come along and circumvent the role that the portals have. So I suspect that the risk in, again, taking a sort of longer term view, that the opportunities and the risks that poses in jobs and property are probably slightly more so than they are in the cars space. Again, if we're comparing across some of these classified verticals, where I suspect the existing user experience of filtering for cars based on condition and transmission and age and mileage is kind of good enough. I'm sure there are ways in which AI could improve, but it's just a more straightforward, easily categorizable search experience in some marketplace categories than it is in others. And I think that has implications for how disruptive Gen AI could be.
I just want to share a perspective. I have a feeling, right, and I'll call it feeling at the moment, that portals today, the major portals in particular, remind me a lot of the newspapers of 2000, 2001. And let me explain to you why. The natural owners of this space, of the property portal space, should have been the newspapers. They had brands, they had content, and so on. But they had such a embedded business model that they couldn't fathom the risk of basically going from charging £500, $1,000 for an ad in a newspaper or magazine, doesn't matter, to a $100 all you can eat package. Okay, so they put their heads in the sand, said, no, AI, no. Oh, internet, no. It's not going to make a big difference. And clearly this whole wave of new people went whooshka past them. Now, what was interesting was the consumers didn't care. They were happy to go look at the internet. The agents didn't care because they were happy to go and use the technology. So I think if we look at what the portals are going to do, we're going to be misled. We have to understand what the advertiser, like the home seller, okay, is going to do, and or the agent, because I think the agents stay as part of this transaction, because most of us buying and selling a house, it's the biggest transaction we'll ever do in our lives. It's going to scare the shit out of us doing that transaction. And if we get it wrong by 5%, we're destroying 5% of probably our wealth in that process. So the agents will have a role. So then I'm thinking, well, if searchers will adopt, right? And you just need to go and use SimilarWeb at the moment. Go look at a bunch of portals out there. Go to the referrals, and you click on the referrals button, or you can scroll down, and you'll see who's the biggest referral: ChatGPT, Perplexity, and so on, right? These AI models are already searching these sites. So I think my hypothesis, what's going to happen is that, first of all, not portals, because portals will stuff around internally. How can I use AI to make my, HR, not like my call center more efficient, make keep customers happy and answer questions, and maybe do dynamic, placements of advertisements and so on better. Things like what PropText does is better, interaction with the listing. But they don't want to put their model at risk, which is all about premium listings and so on, right? They've built this model, same as a newspaper. It's identical to a newspaper. That's the scary thing. And now they've got this model debt that they can't run away from. So then these other guys, like the Jitties of the world, but I don't think it made me not Jitty, but it will come along and they'll say, okay, what is it that an agent really needs, and what is it that a consumer needs? Well, a consumer needs a search agent. So this launched 2 weeks ago, and I'm here in the US, and today's my little play with it day, and I've seen what Mal McCallion has been doing, and we're talking to him about this topic, but in particular in a few days on the podcast, is that you just say to the AI agent, I'm looking for this, return the properties that meet my requirement. And it goes out. It doesn't care if it's scraping in the UK Rightmove or Foxtons or an individual agent office. It'll return the answer that's required. Well, if we start to adopt those sort of search agents, okay, and I've got a feeling people will, right, because it'll be bundled up and packaged into your phone or whatever, right, in a way that is Mickey Mouse, easy to use. Okay. Then what's the role of the portal? The answer is it's questionable, right? And their model crumbles. And then I also think someone's going to launch a estate agent, AI agent, if that makes sense, a real estate AI agent. And that's going to work next to the salesperson. And they're basically going to say, I've got this property, 123 Baker Street, I need to sell. Here's some photos. Here's the address. Go. And it's fundamentally going to go the following. Well, I know that property is being marketed for, I don't know, £500,000. I know you're getting a 1% commission. And I know that, I've set the barrier myself that I spend 20% of that commission on marketing. So here's £1,000 I've got to now invest to get the best results. The AI agent goes, you know what? That property is going to be really good for, Ed, who's got a new kid, and it's perfect for that segment. Okay? Because there's dynamics around it. Well, what we also know is that that persona doesn't really use Rightmove. Okay? So why do I have to have a premium property on Rightmove? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put it there as my base package. But we know that Ed is a big consumer of Instagram and Facebook or whatever. So what I'm going to do is target that persona with that channel. And I'm going to track it all and then constantly move the spend to optimize the outcome. Well, why wouldn't that occur? Okay, you've got algorithms that are trading crypto every microsecond. You've got algorithms that are trading Google AdWords constantly, moving them in and out based on the results and the performance that you get. Why wouldn't you do the same? And if I'm an agent and I go, you know what, I don't have to do anything and I'm going to optimize the outcome. So I'm no longer just spray and pray on Rightmove, On the Market and Zoopla, and I hope I'm going to get results and what happens. It'll become more targeted. So and I've got a feeling the proposition's there for the agent, going to save money, get better results. And I'm playing with my own money. So I want that outcome. And the consumer's going to want to have an AI agent because they're time poor and you say, you will never miss a property. You don't have to crawl across On the Market and Zoopla and Rightmove. We'll do it all for you. In fact, we'll even go to those other agents that all the listings are not even the private listings. That is where I think it's going to change. And I think the portals don't have an answer. And I think, Ed, to your point, it's not 10 years. I actually don't think it's 10 years. I think you'll find it will happen a lot faster than you think in certain markets. Anyway, sorry, rant over.
That might put us out of business as property portal watch, mightn't it?
No. Trust me. But think about it. We use AI in the work we do, in articles and researching. Okay, I use it every single day to do the work that historically would have required sending some emails out or whatever. Now it's embedded in what I do. So the first thing I do is I use Perplexity now. I do not use Google because I get much better answers.
Yeah, do you know what? The last couple of weeks I've started to move that way as well. Toby, what's your thoughts on Simon's quote unquote rant about the future of the industry?
I think it's where the debate needs to move right away from the incremental and towards the sort of transformative opportunities and threats. Because I don't disagree with you, Simon. What is the role of any marketplace business? Fundamentally, it's an aggregator of very fragmented supply and very fragmented demand in one place. And as you've just described, you can quite clearly foresee a world in which various users of AI could disrupt that role in quite fundamental ways. So I think that is where the debate needs to head in terms of how the portals can get ahead of that and protect their fundamental role in the industry. Completely agree with you. It's very unclear what the time frames of all this are, as ever.
Yes. However, would say that if I was, and I had the pleasure of sitting in News Corp's Australia's offices, News International, was it News Limited in Australia, their offices in their internet arm, News Interactive. That's where I did the deal to help buy for News to buy REA. And you talk to the newspaper guys, and they go, "Nah, this is going to take 10 years, right?" Or they puff on their cigarettes. And I used to go in a car because I didn't know much about the industry. I'd go out with these sales guys in a car to Parramatta, which is out in the middle of nowhere. For those in Australia, it's not in the middle of nowhere, but for everyone else in the world, it is. Okay, and we would go and I'd go with them in these cars. It stank of smoke. You'd go out to see real estate agents. They'd walk in the door and go, "Can you give me the photos, thanks. Yeah, how are you? How are the kids?" And they didn't sell. They didn't do anything. They were order takers. So the salespeople in the major portals in Rightmove, REA, Scout24, fundamentally order takers today? Are they actually selling anything? Right? What are they doing? That's my challenging question, right? I think what happens is the industry goes from being aggressive, innovative, exciting. We're going to change the world to, hello, Mr. Agent, you got two choices. The price has gone up 20%. Do you want it to be turned off? Yes or no? Well, I have no choice. Thank you. Come on. We are just photocopying the more I think about this, the scarier it is. If I was running one of these places today, I would actually, and I could see, the problem is how many of the people who are running these today can remember back 25 years and actually live through that moment? And the answer is none of them. So when you don't know what you don't know, your blind spot, you usually get hit by a truck, right? And this is going to be the AI truck. So I actually truly think, and you can clip this one, right, is that we are this is truly transformative. I think a lot of the other stuff, Toby, you're absolutely right, was just like, yeah, we're doing commercial, we're doing international, we're doing all these little bits and pieces. It's just little bits, right? Nothing exciting in the scheme of things. This is truly transformative.
Which of the major portals have you seen something that you think of doing something which is more ambitious or more radical than a lot of the stuff that we discussed? Are there any good examples?
Actually, so the answer is most of the innovations coming out of the emerging markets, because that old age of I'm a big player and I can go charge someone £500 a month, £1,000 a month, £2,000 a month, and they've got the money to spend, doesn't work. So we spoke the other week to what Ricardo's doing in Ricardo Frashu from 360 LATAM is doing across Latin America. I think that is innovative. What he's doing is fundamentally saying, I'm trying to help new developers sell. I'm actually going to be like be the hub between the agents. And so I'm thinking of selling through a different lens, not just through the take listing, advertise, drive traffic, drive leads. I'm taking it from, you give me the listing, I'm going to be the hub between the agent who's going to sell it and with the developer. I'm going to make that process more simpler. Okay, and I will also drive leads, etc. It's more like what's happening in the rental space than it is what's about happening in the traditional classified space, the for sale space. So that's an example of when it's doing it, I think, innovative and transformative. But is anyone really doing something like, oh my God, that's interesting and different? No. Ed, you seen anything that's making you go, wow?
The one thing that I've seen over like my time covering the industry is like what Scout24 are doing in Germany and charging the user. That seems like, a fairly big paradigm shift for a real estate portal, and it's been very, very successful for them. Now, is it something that only works in Germany because of, Germany has whatever it is, 60% of the market is rentals? I don't know. What about you, Tony? The last question, do you know what? We're probably going to run over here, but the last question to you is there something that you see in one company, one model, one trend? Is there one piece of advice that's kind of, let's say, market agnostic that you tend to give or recommend to your clients? Something that they may not have thought of from their perspective?
God, that's an impossible question to generalize across all these.
No, the answer could be no. The answer could be no. There is no great one piece of market agnostic advice out there.
Yeah, parts on that. I think I can't think of anything particularly. I can't think of any sort of silver bullet that applies across all of these markets. To be honest.
That's fair enough. I thought I'd try just in case. That'd be a great little clip at the end.
Yeah,
This is
right.
this is the silver bullet for
Hey,
everyone listening
great.
out there.
It's a great closing question. If I'd had a better response.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think it's very, very, very hard. Although I think I think the actual real message is probably don't get lulled into a sense of superiority or comfort or even arrogance, because I've seen that before. Because I think you've got to be perpetually aware of the risks and perpetually almost like what I can't remember who said the expression, but you basically look over your shoulder 24/7, right? Because someone is coming to eat your lunch, but it just may not be who you think it is. It may not be the CoStar guys. It may be someone out there who's building like Model Prop, who's building these agent-specific tools that the agents go, you know what, I'll take that advertising agent, or I'll take or another AI-driven agent, and suddenly there is an intermediary. Because at the moment, actually this is probably the interesting point. At the moment, there is no intermediary between a portal and its customer, right? The agent. I'm thinking of the agent as the customer, the one who pays the money. But AI can become that intermediary. And once you got someone is unemotional, is just mega logical, I should say, okay, in that process, who just sits there and goes, wait a second, why am I getting my customer in Australia to pay $10,000 for 4 weeks to have a top spot, right? It makes no sense, right? So it comes back to the big reason, like, you don't have to do that. Why don't you get them to do these 3 other things? You're going to sell the house in half the time or have a better outcome, okay? And because most agents out there, real estate agents, are salespeople. They're not doing in-depth analysis about the efficacy of all their advertising spend. They're just going, how many emails did I get? It works, or it doesn't work. Did you answer all the emails? No. But I got more from you, so you must work better. Well, you actually get a whole bunch of rubbish ones. Okay. And a lot of that still exists in the industry. So I do think it's about, you've got to think about.
I think there is some complacency that comes from a market which has just seen very little disruption over the last 10, 15 years. And in these developed countries that we're talking about, the competitive dynamics have been 95% of the time very, very stable. And it's been very hard to dislodge the sort of strong number ones. There are exceptions where you've seen people being leapfrogged, which again, we've spoken about in the past, which you can always learn from where disruption comes from. It's often about disruptive pricing model. It's about coming in with leveraging a mass audience that you have from another part of your business. Most obviously with the social media players, but also some businesses which have just invaded different parts of the landscape. I think there are some businesses there, even some strong number ones that we work with, that are not complacent, and they think in a very sophisticated way about long-term risks, including AI, but also if you think about the job space, the threat posed by what Microsoft are doing, what work they are doing, with their sort of constellations of businesses in that space, sort of internationally, not just sort of thinking about individual national markets as well. But I'm sure you're right, Simon. It's inevitable that you get complacency where there's been such stable competitive environments and such a lack of innovation in the last sort of decade. I also completely agree with you, by the way, about emerging markets. That's definitely where we're seeing places like India and Southeast Asia and Latin America and the Middle East to some extent. Just by necessity, the markets are more in land grab mode. There's more kind of, there's a big prize at the end of the rainbow, but at the moment the markets are still quite small. There are several players sort of scrapping out differentiation. They're having to innovate to help professionalize the underlying markets as well, try and introduce more trust and more professionalization. So I think those are really interesting case studies to learn from too.
And my ending point, look at Italy. In 2007, market leader was Casa. 2006, 2007. Okay, that's when REA owned Casa. 2010, market leader was Immobiliare. Idealista wasn't even in the market. 2021, well, where are we now? 20, that's what's that, 25.
25?
That's how old I'm getting. I know, it's scary. It's now sort of a dogfight between Idealista / Casa as a group and Immobiliare. So leadership is not ordained. It's not like once you're a leader, you stay the leader and the world doesn't change. Because the advertiser, remember, for the advertiser, every month is another month. Every month's where they get to choose. Do I spend my 250 euros or whatever it is in Italy on Immobiliare or on Idealista? Well, you know what? I'll do Idealista more this month. Oh. Right. So I do firmly believe that you got to be so careful about being, hey, we're right move, we're number one, 70% EBITDA margins, and you know what? Let's go back to sleep. All you have to do is wake up once a month, do the invoicing, put the prices up 5%, we'll go back to bed. What else do they do? Right? And I'm being purposely antagonistic here because I think they're the markets that will end up, they'll wake up one day and they'll be the newspapers of the past. And they just won't realize. Like the newspapers didn't realize. And that's why they then spent a bucket load of money buying their way back in. Used bought REA, DMGT in the UK bought, this is going back for the people who are old enough, bought Property Finder and Prime Location and Find Your Home and whatever the other one was, Up Your Street. I can't remember, one of those ones. And that's where Zoopla came from. Okay. Because he bought a lot of that out of.
Yeah, so again, same thing happened in lots of other marketplace categories as well. You look at the traditional dating businesses, and then Tinder came along, Match bought Tinder, and now then Tinder started to look over the shoulder at Hinge, bought Hinge, and sort of anointed that as a sort of new number two in the market. So you can see a lot. I think that's the other thing which we definitely find instructive is looking at the parallels across different marketplace categories, but the business models fundamentally are all quite similar. They just have sort of different waves of innovation, different waves of leadership and challenges.
All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much, Toby, for talking to us today. Simon, thank you very much for getting up at whatever it was, 5:30 your time. I think we'll do all the podcasts at 5:30 your time from now on because you seem to be very lucid with your
coffee. When you do them in the evening, it's Aperol Spritz. Come on. It's your choice.
All right, gents, thank you very much for joining us today. And if you're listening, we'll see you for the next one.